Hello everybody, Michael Mead here, and I'm going to be doing something that's actually the finish of a project, because this is a project that takes like 6 weeks of this sitting around waiting, so I didn't want to hold off on that, doing that whole thing in the video. But what I have here is a Echinacea Tincture. And what I'm going to do now is the finishing part of that project. So essentially, just so that you understand what I've done so far, is that I put in the Echinacea herbs up to a certain line, and then I used Everclear, which is legal to buy in my state, so I was able to get it, which is 95% alcohol, and I brought it up to the same level as the top of the herbs. And then I used a 40% vodka to bring it another inch above that level. And then of course I shook it, and a little while later, after a couple of days of shaking it and being absorbed, I had to top it off some more. So what I did was I used just plain water on top of that. For those of you who care about that kind of thing, that ends up being about a 57% alcohol solution that it spent the 6 weeks in. So now it's been 6 weeks. I'm going to open it up and essentially just pour it through my strainer. Now we're not going to get a whole lot because the size of your bottle determines how much you're actually going to get. And I don't tend to use really big bottles, but I do kind of use a big strainer, and that's so I can kind of spread it out to make sure I get as much of the liquid as possible through the granules of the herb that's in here. Now this is a root, so it's basically wood. And I'm going to squeeze it just down just a little bit to try and get everything out. Now, I'm not using a cheesecloth here because most of this is really big enough that it's not going to seep through into the bottom. And so that looks like we've gotten about as much as we can get. We're just stirring it around a little bit more. And if we were to leave this set for a little while, what we would find is that there is a little bit of sediment in it. There we go. Little trash can off to the side there so that I can dump that into it. So there it is, and well, maybe you can't see it, but I can see that there's a little bit of sediment left into the in the solution. So to get all of that out and to make it a nice clear solution, what I use is this 1 cup coffee maker. I'm going to turn it around so it sits properly, and I use 1 coffee filter. Get the coffee filter stuck down inside there, and now I'm going to pour the solution in through that, and it will strain out. Now maybe you can see some of the sediment that's left inside the glass. But that will bring it down to a real nice fine solution. And while that's working, I want to talk a little bit about some of the herbs and things, because right now everybody's looking for antiviral herbs. And if you go on the internet and you start looking up antiviral herbs, what you'll find is there are many pages who have, you know, the 10 best antiviral herbs, the 15 best antiviral herbs, the 5 best, 10, 7, 12, whatever. And they're different. and you would wonder, you would think if there are the 10 best, why are they different on this page than they are on that page? Well, and that's because they're looking at the herbal effects from different directions. For instance, the some things are going to affect viruses that affect the digestive system. Some are going to do the ones that hit their upper respiratory systems. Then there's the circulation system. There's all kinds of different ways that viruses can affect us, and there's different ways that the herbs support those things. The immune system, you know, some herbs help to develop white blood cells, others help the immune system to react better, some actually protect the body from allowing the virus to replicate, which means that, yeah, it might get in there, but it's not going to grow. So there's a number of different ways that herbs work for us to help out. And of course, I'm a big one for doing things that improve the immune system. So as you know, we've done elderberry syrups, we've done we do a moringa capsule, we do all kinds of different things that help to build the immune system and to fight off inflammations and such. But I like to approach the whole thing from a preventative aspect, and so what I like to do is to use herbs before I get sick, things that build the immune system, help out keeping the digestive system clear and working, and that way, when it comes down to my needs for fighting off a virus, which, by the way, you know, a cold and a flu are both caused by viruses, different kinds of viruses, but viruses none the same. And so by doing those things, what happens is that I tend to not get sick, or if I do get sick, it tends to disappear really quickly. And that's basically my goal. So I'm just kind of helping out my filtration system here a little bit. We get out the only thing that becomes an issue with this is that you lose a lot of solution in the absorption of the paper, but that's okay. And now to more or less finish off our product here, I'm going to pour this into these dropper bottles, and I have to be kind of careful while I'm doing this, but the nice thing about this is that the dropper bottles will allow me to take 5 or 10 drops at a time, and generally speaking, I do 10 drops first thing in the morning, and then I'll do another 10 drops a couple of times during the day, and then again at night before I go to bed. So basically speaking, what I'm doing is keeping this herb going in through my system and allowing my immune system to build. This is Echinacea, so it's good for upper respiratory system and good for the basic overall immune system. And so now I'm going to finish off. Let's see if I can squeeze it into some of these. I don't want to squeeze too much because otherwise it'll just pour off, so I'm just going to leave that. Now we cap it off, and just so you know, we have I have labels sitting over here that I'm going to throw on here so that we know what they are, because otherwise we'll get lost in with all of the different dropper bottles that we have, because we make many tinctures around our house. So I have labels here that simply say Echinacea Simple. It's a simple because it only has one herb in it. It's not a formula. And I tend to do that with tinctures. I prefer to make one herb at a time. And once we get these labels on here, I'm going to be able to take a couple of these bottles over to my neighbor across the street, who is a nurse in the ICU at one of the hospitals dealing with coronavirus and suffering from all the PPE problems. She also happens to have taken one of my herb classes, and she's familiar with all of the things that we do. So we're going to take a couple of bottles of these over to her and try and help her out a little bit. So anyway, I hope that explains a little bit more about some of the herbs that we do, and we'll see you in the next video.